Kia ora and welcome to my presentation for 6.0 Design for Learning. Okay, my focus in starting MTAL has always revolved around relationships, whether it's a relationship between student, kaiako, community, school, whānau, and how all of them are interlinked. But mainly how these relationships impact on student learning within the school environment. For this assessment, I want to focus on a relationship that is sometimes overlooked, and that is the student and their siblings. Because our senior school is quite small and fluctuates anywhere between 20 and 40 students on any given day, siblings are often in the same class or in the next room, keeping in mind that our rooms are divided by glass doors and not walls. All of my students either have siblings or cousins at the school, and to add to the mix, approximately 40% of the students in the senior school are my extended whānau. So that adds another element to how the students relate to me as their teacher. Student A, starting with, is a twin and whose sister shares the same class. Student A is an attentive student who engages and contributes fully to the class and can work independently. However, if her twin sister is having a challenging day at school for whatever reason, Student A will often focus her energy on managing her or taking on extra responsibilities to compensate for her behaviour. Student B is also a twin who shares the same class as his twin sister and is my nephew. He is great at recalling information and can conduct practical exercises and tasks effortlessly, but has a tendency to dominate class discussions and influence class behaviour. His relationship with his sister doesn't at first glance appear to impact his learning, but in a feedback form that he filled out, he described how he admires her sister for her academic achievements, and out of school she is the one that keeps reminding him to keep up with his work. Student C transferred from another school and is the only student I have with any information of his prior learning. He is close with his sister, who is a bit of a social loner and is 2 years older in a year 11 to 13 class. She will often tell me how she has to remind student C to complete his schoolwork instead of mucking around at home. The idea behind my data collection was to have them complete feedback forms, exit cards, and do observations. And this was all going to contribute to my Tauira Māori Compass Journey artefact. The artefact was based on a model we used for our environmental science class, and it was used so that they could see a direct correlation and relevance to the actual artefact. Time-wise, this journey will take, I planned for it to take over a term, but it could actually be used for projects, or even it could actually be used for the whole year. The students would start their beginning of their journey from either Matawai or Whatututu, which is where most of my students come from, and then they'll be passing academic milestones planted in the river and use the marae that is closest for support if they needed to. I also had a diagram that was at the ready so that students could use it as conversation starters if they had difficulty trying to articulate an issue they were having, all the while making observations on them and their siblings. But it was all too much and I needed a lot more planning, and it didn't give me the results that I needed in such a short time. But mainly it wasn't working because I lost each of my students. Student A moved to another school, but then she came back, but then she got stood down, so she's not there. I also got a 1 day a week placement for student B on a farming course, but now he spends all of his time on the farming course and not at school. And then student C refused to come to school at all because of an issue with bullying. I reflected on this experience and critiqued my method. I reread the requirements of the assessment and did some further readings. My two main pieces of research came from Personalised Learning by Andy Hargreaves and Charles Leadbeater, while keeping an overarching relationships theme supported by Te Kotahitanga by Bishop and Berryman, and was introduced to the theories of Anne Milne, who was very interesting. I broke my first artefact down to the basics so that I had a core to build on, and the focus on relationships was now changed between the tauira and their siblings to the kaiako and tauira. And I was looking at styles of learning more than academic achievements. because fingers crossed, if this all worked out well, if the students were able to find a safe space or comfortable space that they could learn in their own unique style, then the academic achievements would come naturally. Okay, so my new student A, he has 56 attendance rate, engages well in a group discussion, but really discusses the topic we're actually doing in class. So all of my new students, one of the things that I wanted was a higher attendance rate, even though attendance rate in my classes are fairly low anyway. Student B, apart from a lot of other kind of criteria that I filled out, she reads and writes at about a level 3. One of the things that I found out about student B was that she actually feels quite discontent or separated from the class because she doesn't believe she has a student voice, which kind of adds to her frustration, and she doesn't act out, she kind of goes quieter, which I had no idea that some of this was actually happening for her. So I'm really glad I did this feedback form, and I was able to work closer with her to see if we can find some methods and approaches that suited her. Student C, he has average attendance of 54%, but he's very quick at catching up. So he doesn't miss classes, but he's very quick at catching up. He has great kind of memory, he can recall information, and I would say he's one of my highest achievement learners in my class. Interestingly, he saw his behaviour as a level 2, whereas I would have put him at a level 4. I didn't think his behaviour was that bad at all compared to the rest of my class. Okay, so taking into account the data I already had gathered on my students, I decided to use the information and apply it to Hargreaves' theory of personalised learning using my Kahoot survey artifact to explore individual learning styles and to gather additional information and data. I put the artifact into use, and then I was able to show my students some of the results, which is up here in this corner. Then I was able to group them into the learning styles, and I kept it pretty simple at this stage with visual, audio, and kinesthetic. And then I discussed with the students what exactly these styles meant and what it meant to them, and looking at the results. So it was a really good conversation. Then what we did, then I gave them the option. I tried to actually apply it to their learning. So once they were grouped, so those are all the people in the visual learners, I then gave them options when I handed out their research project, and they were allowed to have the choice. So for example, my year 10 students whose results showed that they were visual learners, they had the option of producing a standard 400-word poster, or they could try producing a Google site on their chosen topic. Their prior learning was also acknowledged at this stage by way of invitation, asking students to share their poster, art piece, or presentation through an interest or an activity they enjoyed. So as a result, I actually ended up with a lot of food-themed presentations being currently prepared. Okay, the feedback I got was mixed. They really liked the idea of having options, and we spent a whole class deciding options and how they would like to produce their final piece. However, once they started getting into it, and for some, we're nearly finished, I asked them again for feedback and got mixed reviews about how they thought their chosen way was sometimes too hard, or they wanted to do what their friend was doing, or they couldn't remember what their learning style actually meant. With this in mind, I did an exercise in class that allowed them to experiment with other learning styles to explore other options. This exercise was successful, and after completion, my students seemed to be happy to go back to their original method of learning style to finish and complete their research projects, which was brilliant. The next steps, I understand that I have just scratched the surface of universal design for learning and found that TK's Eyes inclusive education site to be really useful resource, from showing me how to plan, where to find resources, recommended reading, and also suggested some valuable reflection questions. In reflection, I would like to work more directly with my students to diversify their learning styles so that I could have more, so they could have more autonomy, agency, and accountability over their learning styles and approaches. So that's pretty much where I am for my presentation. I'm pretty excited to keep moving on, and these are my references. Have a great day. Bye from San Francisco.